Hi, I'm Alicia Hilton Daniel. I am the owner and founder of Hilton Daniel Design and Construction, and you're listening to U.S. Modernist Radio.
Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Oh, I don't care what Mama don't allow, gonna draw mine modern anyhow. Mama don't allow no architecture around here.
Welcome to U.S. Modernist Radio, where we talk and laugh with people who enjoy, own, create, dream about, preserve, love, and hate modernist architecture, the most exciting and controversial buildings in the world. I'm Tom Guild. Today we go from New York to Fort Collins, Colorado, starting with John Patrick Winberry, co-founder of the Queens-based Up Studio. Later on, we hang out with Michelle Rembolt and Angel Kwiatkowski, founders of the Fort Collins-based Modernist renovators Hairpin Homes. U.S. Modernist Radio is underwritten by Diane Bald and the Budman family, restoring significant architecture in Toronto, Los Angeles, Malibu, and Palm Springs. And now, your host, Mr. Modernism, George Smart.
Hey, thanks, Tom. After decades of huge suburban McMansions, those massive houses with crazy windows and missile silo foyers, now even modernist houses are getting bigger. Way bigger. In LA particularly, they can be 20,000 square feet or more. As a modernist fan, I'm all for building new houses, but the size calls into question, is it really a house?
Or is it a small hotel?
When you're talking 8 bedrooms or 10 bathrooms and a living room bigger than an average house, sometimes by a factor of 3, you really are building a small B&B. That's why it's so refreshing to run across a project that evokes the efficiency of classic, small, modernist houses. And today's first guest is New York architect John Patrick Winberry. He's the founding principal of the Queens-based Up Studio, dedicated to modern commercial and residential architecture, interior, and brand design. Up was recently, up for Dezeen's Architecture Studio of the Year award. And one of the firm's latest projects, this small house on Long Island, was featured on CBS's America by Design. Here's my conversation with John Patrick Winberry. It used to be out in the Hamptons, back in the day, it was just farms. Just lots and lots of farms and some fishing huts and some villages and that kind of rural country life. And then New York discovered the Hamptons, and it began to be a paradise for people to escape the city. And these little small jewel box kind of houses started to be built by architects that would become well-known later, like Norman Jaffe and Andrew Geller, even Richard Meyer and Charles Gwathmey. And as time went by, this land became more valuable and more valuable and more valuable, and more people moved out there, and the houses got bigger and bigger and bigger until you've got these really gigantic houses out there in the Hamptons that are all quite nice. And it's a splendid place to spend some time. One of the things that I was really impressed with recently in watching a show called By Design was this house that I missed it. Just this little jewel box house designed by John Patrick Winberry at the Up Studio that just spoke to that time where, people held these houses in such high regard. So, John, how are you today?
I'm doing well, George. Thanks so much for having me.
How did you come across this client and this lot? Because it seems like that in looking at this house, it's situated perfectly. You've got the pool in just the right place. And it's really not so big at all. It's like 1,800 square feet, 1,900?
Yeah, I mean, above grade, it's about 2,800 square feet, including, but it's one of those things that as an architect, we get very lucky. Myself and the team have been working with this particular client. This is about our 5th project with them. And there's a level of trust that is kind of instilled in something like that. And we proposed for them to create, as you kindly said, a little jewel box. And let's try to show some restraint on this property. And they bought in and allowed us to kind of have some fun with exploring that typology.
And, when people ask me, and they ask me all the time, why should I pay an architect to design a house for me? I mean, I don't want to pay all that money. And the answer is that they're trained in this. They can get you a structure that lives way larger than it looks on paper. And this house is greatly an example of that, about how the interior space is organized. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And we talk to clients about this. Some of our clients are for the first time working with an architect. And I do think there is some trepidation early on. And our studio is really proud of building a process and showing or informing clients why it is very important to engage architects in order to maximize the potential of any lot, whatever that may be. On this particular lot, it's a corner condition. It's very, very snug to its setback. We wanted to create privacy at the street, so we removed all the doors and windows. And as you come into the home, we essentially fully glaze the back of the house. So the front of the house has no windows at the first floor, but the entire back is fully glazed. So when you come in, you're instantly drawn to the exterior energy that's happening back there. So
for those of you that are following along, glazing means windows. It's not what's on your donut.
I apologize. Sometimes I get too deep into the weeds here. Yeah, it's just our floor to ceiling windows and doors is another way to capture it. But it's one of those things, to your point, is that, we analyzed the property and we figured out very, very early on for the client that by orienting all of the views to the rear of the property, that outside energy on this very compact lot would come back into the architecture and really expand the overall feeling of the property. It feels way larger than what it is when you're walking through. And we're really excited that the client allowed us the ability to explore that.
And from the TV series, which we'll talk about in a minute, I learned that you have this nice pool in the back of the house. And because of setbacks or zoning or whatever, it pretty much is in the only place you could put it.
Yeah, zoning is always very tricky. Just in general, there's a lot of complexity that happens on properties, especially a property like this. So a corner lot is always more difficult than an inland lot because the corner has a lot more restraints on it. They want to make corners smaller, so when someone's turning the car around the street, that's it's not overwhelming. It's a noble thing, but it then limits the person that has purchased the corner lot. So on our property here, there was only one legal location that we could put a pool. So it was part of the conversation on day one. We essentially placed that location and then figured out how we could maximize the amount of program that they wanted to put on the house.
How did you come into this series by design?
It was through a couple of connections which happened. We're a younger, George, I think I'm still young. I'm not sure anymore, but we're a younger studio, it feels. So a lot of times it's a connection through a manufacturer. So on this particular one, we used Marvin Windows for our window package. And they connected us to the producer who had walked the property and really was very, very generous in their thoughts on it and allowed us the opportunity to share it with a very, very wide audience.
So people can see this. It's on CBS, but which part of CBS? Where can people access it?
Yeah, so it's actually going to be on broadcast. Also, it's available on CBS's streaming platform. So all their streaming avenues have the availability to watch it as well.
I believe it's also on their website now, too, right? You can see the different episodes. That's where I saw your segment.
Yep.
And who was the person interviewing you on site?
That was Krista. She is an architect and designer that works at Woods Bagot, which is a very large firm that is international. And it was great to meet her on the project and show her through our design thinking and why we did what we did on the house.
One of the things I really like about this tiny little house, really, by today's standards, is that the roof is usable. You've got a roof deck, and it's the entire square footage of the footprint. So it's a big roof deck, and half of it has some kind of decking on it, looks like a recreational area, and half of it looks like this big putting green.
Right, yeah. The roof deck on this particular lot is really important for us. Early on, when the client purchased the lot, we got a drone up there and realized almost immediately that if we could occupy the roof, that they would have panoramic water views. None of the surrounding properties are taking advantage of that because they have a pitched roof. So you have to be at a certain elevation to see the water. None of the surrounding properties are. The client was like, 100%, let's occupy the roof. When we do occupy a roof, we typically break it in half. So half of it is for a table and chairs and maybe like a barbecue or an outdoor eating area. And then the other half is typically set for solar. So we're still waiting for the solar to be installed on this particular property. So right now it's just a little putting green for the family. But once they get a full calendar year of how much energy consumption is happening, then we want to cater the solar to its exact consumption.
So do you think the solar will cover that whole putting green area or just part of it?
It would probably cover about 75% of it.
Okay.
So there'll still be a little area for it, but we do want to utilize as much solar power as possible.
Are they having parties up there now? Because I really want to come to a party on that roof.
Listen, you and me both. I would love to get the invite. I have not got the invite, but I know there are many parties that are happening up there. Yes.
Well, I will be your +1, John.
Listen, you're welcome anytime.
Thank you so much for talking with me.
Thanks for sharing the project.
George was chatting with John Patrick Winberry of the Queens-based Up Studio. Fort Collins, Colorado. Once a real fort, the town is known for fresh air, craft beer, lots of bicycles, and keeping track of time. Yes, all our devices basically run off the atomic clocks based at Fort Collins. When I was a young boy and I used to tune in the shortwave radio, I would tune in to WWV from Fort Collins, Colorado to hear some robot lady tell me what time it was.
I had a crush on that robot lady.
Oh, you too. And starting a few years ago, Fort Collins gained a dynamic duo of moms and longtime friends who started flipping modernist houses and repairing other houses for clients who wanted to sell. Hairpin Homes partners Michelle Rembolt and Angel Kwiatkowski buy deliciously dated mid-century houses in all conditions, from houses that have too many cats to houses that have never been cleaned out. You know, hoarders. Never fearful of a challenge, they've been described as selective and relentless. They also host an annual tour of mid-century houses. Welcome to U.S. Modernist Radio, Angel and Michelle.
Thank you so much for having us. Hi.
Hi. You two have been friends for a long time. I'm thinking 24 years, starting at Colorado State?
Yeah, I think, 1997 was our establishment date.
And how did this establish? How did you meet?
So we were both out-of-state students at CSU, and they put all the out-of-state students on the same floor for some reason. And every weekend, all the kids who lived in Colorado would go home, abandoning all the out-of-state kids. And so that's how we met and found out we're both from Nebraska.
Oh, not very far away.
Whereabouts?
So Angel is originally from Lexington, Nebraska, and I'm from Lincoln, Nebraska.
I know Lincoln, Nebraska. Where is Lexington?
It's right in the middle on I-80. You've probably stopped there to use the restroom.
Yeah. All those times I drove through Nebraska, yes.
I have at least once.
Yeah. It's a very, very small town.
Now, at Colorado State, you found each other, you graduated, and then what happened? Did you just kind of decide to stay in town?
I'll let Michelle go first because she was all over the place. I couldn't keep track of where she was.
So after college, I focused on international education. I was working with students studying abroad all over the world. So I had various roles with that. And so, yeah, Angel was right when she said I was all over the place. But I returned to Colorado in 2005, did a master's degree, and then kind of stuck in Colorado after that.
What was your master's in?
Also in international studies. I did concentrations in human rights and international security.
Wow.
That's very noble.
Well, it was something I loved, so it was fun.
And what's the bridge between that and real estate?
Really just passion. I think real estate and design and all of that was just something I kind of always poked around in a personal way. Both the homes I owned as a younger person, I completely renovated on my own. So it was just something I loved to do, but it wasn't my career.
Were these modernist houses you were renovating?
They were actually. Both of them were 1950s homes. Both starter. Well, the first one was very much a starter home. It was 750 square feet. And then we kind of upgraded when we started having kids. But it was a typical 1950s ranch.
And Angel, while Michelle was going around the world, what was going on with you after college?
So I have an undergraduate degree in psychology, and I didn't get into grad school. And so I got to work retail for 4 years in Wyoming.
Like in a Gap or something?
At Target. I worked at Target for a while.
Excellent store.
Yeah, I loved it. And I was in management, so it was fun to be away from home and have a hard job that was a lot of hours. But I was young and fit, so it was a good match.
Okay.
And then I came back to Fort Collins, where my husband, we were married yet, but he was here because we met in college as well. And I switched to career counseling, and I did that for a while. And then I had a brief stint in HR. And the CEO of that company told me that I was an entrepreneur, and so I should stop trying to change his business and start my own. And
that's a nice way of firing somebody.
Yeah.
It was very devastating because I had never really been in trouble at work, let alone been fired. And so I did some soul searching, and co-working, the shared office spaces for freelancers and remote workers, were just coming on the scene back in 2010. And so I decided to start one of those. And so I wound up starting one of the first co-working spaces in the United States, and I still have that business.
And that's called Cohere?
Yeah, good sleuthing.
Yeah, well, we did research, So the clock goes forward here. You've got families, and then one day somebody has the idea to start flipping houses. Who did that?
That was me. I was very much in a place of wanting to look for a second career. I was ready. And I think that, this was during the pandemic. I think a lot of people did that at that time. I'm not alone. And I felt I wanted to move away from higher education, didn't know what I wanted to do. I kind of felt like I was floundering. And, we were just having lunch on the patio at Cohere one day. And, I said, if I'm honest, what I really want to do is, renovate houses. And she just jumped right in and said, me too.
Well, with the context that we weren't allowed to gather, the businesses were shut down. You couldn't gather during the pandemic. So I was watching my business die on the vine. I mean, it was every day 10 members left until half of my revenue was gone and I was no longer profitable. And so when Michelle was having a career revival, I thought, well, I want to hang out with Michelle. I'll flip a house. That was that.
Your first two projects were Cypress and Evergreen, right?
Yep.
And the backyard on Evergreen is really, really nice. Tell us about that project. How did it get started and how did it turn out?
Oh, man, I don't even know where to start. I can talk about the yard because that was kind of my portion of the project. Michelle handled indoors. But it was rough. It was a rough little house that had been a family home for a lot of years, decades. And then the owners passed or went to a care home. And so then they were renting it out. And the renters had a lot of animals and not a great desire to clean or maintain anything. So it was in rough shape and it was kind of languishing on the market. And so we thought it was a pretty cool house with the vaulted ceiling, and it was a really big lot on a corner with some cool features. And so we ultimately ended up getting it. But maybe I'll kick it over to Michelle to talk about what she saw in that house vision-wise that allowed us to pull it off.
Yeah, I mean, I think originally, we're so smitten with these time capsule houses that still have original features. But the tricky thing is, we have tight timelines and not super generous budgets all the time. And so we have to figure out how to best, draw attention to the modern features or the original features, but also think about how modern folks want to live. So, it presents some unique challenges, but I don't know. I think we just had to really open it up. There was just kind of one wall between the kitchen and the kind of a great room that we were calling it, the vaulted room. And so opening that up just really made a huge difference. And then the other difference was switching a secondary living room into a primary suite that had an ensuite attached to it. So those were kind of the two big major changes. And the rest was just kind of figuring out what we could keep and what we needed to update.
How handy are you guys? Is this something you can do yourselves?
Absolutely not. No. We hire professionals that know what they're doing and are licensed and all the appropriate trades. We tend to do just kind of some cosmetic stuff, a little bit of design here and there, and then project manage it from beginning to end and come up with the design at the beginning.
Well, that's important too.
Now, Michelle, I understand you're the construction site supervisor most of the time?
That's right. Yeah, I tend to like to be on site every day. And I kind of joke with people that I'm also kind of the unskilled labor around. I can help out with what's needed. If somebody needs something from Home Depot, I often am running out to do things like that. But it's also just a lot of work up front, coming up with the design and then ordering all the materials and whatnot. So it's a lot of just coordinating between folks, making sure everything shows up on time and everybody can do what they need to do.
And how many houses have you converted like this so far?
Well, Michelle did her 2 personal residences. I did my house in Cheyenne, and then we've done 2 together.
Yeah, so we're just infants in terms of as a business.
Well, I think it's really great that you have taken this business and injected so much of your personalities in it. Have you guys thought about a cable TV series? This sounds like it'd be perfect.
I would love to have a show. Michelle would not love to have a show. So I'm extroverted enough for all of us. It would delight me to no end, but I think Michelle would be less invigorated by the idea of being filmed.
Well, I can see that, Angel, because your Facebook game is bananas.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, she's on point with social media for sure.
Big time.
Yeah.
And the staging in your homes is really impeccable. What does it take to produce that kind of quality?
The right stager, who is our magic bullet, really. Her name's Laura, and she has a gift.
What's great, we pretty early on found a stager that we knew we liked her style. And what's great about her is that she'll come out kind of at the beginning of the project when it's not done, and she'll get an idea of the design from me. And she'll already be thinking about the pieces she wants to pull from her inventory for our particular project. So finding someone that really cares about the design of the home and knows what you're trying to do with the vision and then can play off of that. I think that's been really key. And, honestly, finding someone that has that style that you're looking for, because frankly, a lot of the styled homes are styled very traditionally and they're trying to meet the most number of buyers on the market, right? That will attract, but we try to push it a little bit. And we know that there are lovers of mid-century design everywhere. And that's how we feel that we stand out.
Now, you've done homes for yourselves, as you've mentioned. Have you done homes for clients that have asked you to come in and turn around their residences?
Well, so we started our business a year ago, and it's been wild. Just, again, I credit a lot of Angel's social media skills. We've had a lot of inquiries of people reaching out, asking if we do renovations as well. Initially, we kind of were just saying no, because we just were a brand new business and we felt we should focus on one thing at a time. But we are now coming more open to that, and we are working with a few clients. And we'll see what comes of it.
Angel, I loved the title of your blog post on COVID, Virtual Co-working, Not as as we thought.
Totally.
Give us the high points from that article. Why is it not as as we thought?
Gosh, I love owning my own business, so I can use swears. So struggled as a community because I think more than a lot of other sort of retail co-working spaces you read about in the news, where it's very much a commodity, where their best service is, beautiful space with glass walls and kombucha on tap and things like that. Cohere has always been friendship based, and we just like each other. We like to be around each other, and we don't have the nicest things. We don't have the nicest amenities or the fanciest of anything, but people came because they became friends and they genuinely just want to hang out. And there's people who haven't been members of Cohere for 10 years and they're still friends and they go do stuff together, which is, for me, the highest version of co-working, is letting people become best friends and then move on without the space. So we couldn't be together because it's like, what's my competitive advantage if we can no longer gather? How do we capture the magic of what Cohere is on Zoom? And so it was a lot of trial and error, but we do, and we still do them now, actually, work sprints. So everybody comes on to Zoom and we just kind of say what we want to get done in the next hour. And then somebody sets a timer and we work for an hour, and then we come back and we admit if we did what we said we wanted to work on or not. So a little bit of light accountability. And then we also had lunchtime micro concerts, which were really wonderful. So we would have a local musician come on and just play music for us for 15 minutes. And we would get to meet them and kind of ask them about their work and donate money to them, which felt nice because the musicians were struggling, especially during lockdown. So that was really cool. And then we had some other stuff sprinkled in there. A couple of guys made their signature cocktails for us. We could see, what all ingredients you needed to make some fun cocktail. And I feel like I've blocked a little bit of it. I don't remember all the things that we did. Hopefully the blog post memorialized them. I don't remember.
Were there any gluten-free Pop-Tarts involved anywhere?
No, those were kind of a recent discovery of mine. I eat them. They're in my personal stash at home.
Okay.
We brought this up because we asked them earlier what they'd had for breakfast.
Yeah.
And I think your response was fake Pop-Tarts or something like that?
Yeah. Expensive fake Pop-Tarts.
Yes, it required further investigation.
Yeah. I think that should be an amenity at your co-working space now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they must have rare ingredients in them because they cost $2 a tart.
They're artisanal.
Artisanal.
They're super artisanal.
Okay. Angela Michelle, tell us about your annual Hairpin Modernist tour.
I don't have as big of a role in the remodel as Michelle does. So after I kind of secure the property from the real estate side, I get kind of bored. And so I was trying to think up a fun way to get the word out about Hairpin. And I thought, gosh, wouldn't it be cool if our first annual tour happened to happen at the exact same time we put Evergreen on the market, and then we can have check-in at Evergreen and force all the tourees through one of our projects. So that was sort of the strategy behind how it kicked off. But I ended up talking to the Denver Modernism Week group and Adrian Kinney, especially.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully you know about him because he's, us times 2 million. And he was a wonderful resource and sort of gave me the Cliff Notes version of how to pull off a tour. And then because our tour happened at the end of Denver Modernism Week, they were able to spread the word for us as well, which I think was a big part of the success that we had, is that we had a really big audience right away because of their wonderful partnership.
And what time of year is this tour?
We did it in September.
Okay.
Is that right?
I think it was August, or maybe no, it was September. I've already forgotten.
I know, everything goes so quickly now. Yeah, so I've never a home tour, and I've certainly never organized a mid-century one that was spread across 5 locations with 30 volunteers I had to locate. So it was a real undertaking, but it was so wildly successful, and everybody loved it so much that I can't even nitpick myself, which is, my favorite middle of the night hobby is to worry. But it was awesome.
And I also want to jump in here and say that Angel her superpower is creating community. She is one of those people that just remembers everyone she meets and can remember their story, their spouse's name. She's just a walking encyclopedia. And so that has been the secondary joy of it, is just getting to meet. There's already a huge community in Colorado that are lovers of this kind of design. And so we've been able to kind of supercharge getting to meet everyone just right off the bat as we're dipping our toe into this. And so that's been such an incredible opportunity as well, because there are some big modernism and mid-century fans here in Colorado.
If people want to go to the tour in 2023, where can they find you? What's your website?
Hairpinhomes.com is the main website. I'm not even sure I have the landing page for the next tour up, but it's probably hairpinhomes.com/MCM-tour, if my memory holds. It should be on there still.
Well, let's just check it real quick.
Uh-oh.
Hairpinhomes.com. It's an MCM.
There's probably an MCM tour link at the top of the homepage, I bet.
Yeah, it's at the top of the page. Okay, here we go. You said TBD 2023. So, yes, it's there. 5 homes, 4 hours, unlimited squeals of delight. Please join us for our second annual Fort Collins Mid-Century Home Tour by Hairpin Homes.
Yay.
I'll do a promo ad for you.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh,
That's
thank you. You have such a
fantastic.
wonderful voice.
Love it.
I just worship at the feet of Tom here. He has the voice of the triangle.
He sure does.
Well, thanks, ladies.
Angel and Michelle, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. U.S. Modernist Radio is underwritten by Diane Bald and the Budman family, restoring significant architecture in Toronto, Los Angeles, Malibu, and Palm Springs.
Visit usmodernist.org's massive archives to listen to past shows, discover documentation of 15,000 significant modernist houses, and access 4.1 million pages of classic 20th century architecture magazines. U.S. Modernist Radio is produced by Soundtracks Recording Studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. Our theme song was performed by George Smart and Robinson Earl. Kelly Policelli did guest research. U.S. Modernist Radio is a production of Modernist Archive Incorporated, a nonprofit educational archive for the documentation, preservation, and promotion of modernist residential design. I'm Tom Guild. George and I'll be back next week with another exciting episode recorded poolside at the U.S. Modernist Compound in Palm Springs during Modernism Week.